How you going, mate?
Good.
Good. Very good. Dude, introduce yourself. What's your name? Who you are today as a person, as a career. Yeah.
Yeah, so my name's Anthony Tarquinio.
Yeah.
And when you sit there and you go who you are, and I've always thought about that and you start to rattle them off. Husband, father, brother, son, um, business owner.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you own or what do you do?
so construction business, so background civil engineering, then became a builder, now partnered with two others in a construction business, so 7-figure construction business, which is quite large and stressful. And just working my way through life.
Cool. What do you build specifically?
As far as construction goes, we build sort of several types of different projects with renovations, single homes. We do multi-unit sites. But have a background in commercial construction as well, so civil construction.
Yeah.
So being a civil engineer.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that's what our business focuses around.
Cool. What's some really cool shit that you've built over the past years? Really cool buildings or Jesus is proud of or
You really flick back through the years pretty quickly. It's really, I notice it now more when I look at the younger employees that you have or younger people, and they're so eager to run, jump, and sprint.
Yeah.
I built some really cool stuff, man. If I flicked off the top of my head, I think when I was first started my career in buildings, like mid-20s, because I did other things before that, but just being able to build apartments in the city was cool. Got to be involved with some great civil projects, level crossing removals or freeways and bridges between here and Perth, and lots of precasted thing with cranes and stuff like that. So, really cool journey until you start your own business, man. Cool. And then it's not about what you're actually building. It's building your mind. It's building your team. It's building your skill set, and everything changed.
I love that, man.
From becoming a business owner.
Yeah. What do you think's changed, or what do you think changes?
Yeah, right. And everybody probably says that you grow, right? So you mature, but is it really maturity, or it's at some stage you take a leap or a plunge. In our case, it was with the construction business originally, and I had I've got the ability to do that with a couple of other guys, but at that point in time, when you take that jump, it's probably a bit more naive. Like we did that. COVID was well and truly underway, 2020. We'd already started the business in 2019. We were still working our other jobs, something ticking in the background. Yeah. And then you're like, oh yeah, we can do this. And then you do it and you're like, wow, how much there is to learn, how much there is to grow. And then the challenges around that. Yeah. Like it was difficult from the get-go. And I don't think that it gets any easier. It's just that you develop different skill sets. I think you really manage to, neural pathways snap in different directions, right? And you start to put links together and things start to make sense and then other things don't. I think mindset was the biggest thing to change, but it took time to work out that I needed to change my mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys out there in the construction industry, right, who are struggling with their business and obviously things away from the business as well, home life, and it all compounds. How did you manage to go through COVID? Like people think, like a lot of businesses shut down. A lot of people are still, still going through that.
Yeah, definitely. The first word that comes to mind is naivety, because at that time, we sort of jumped, said, hey, we can make money. Let's go ahead and do it.
At the time, what were you risking? Like, what was happening that you were like, fuck, like I'm going to lose everything, or what? What was a real example of what you were possibly going to lose?
Everything. I mean, as a builder,
what did you build up that you were probably thinking, I'm going to lose it?
Like a house, every financial bit of money that you've got, because everything goes in, it's all your chips. And being a relatively risk-averse person myself, and growing up in that industry of construction. It's like everybody's, how do we minimize risks? How do we minimize spending? You would go do big civil projects or building projects in the city. It didn't matter what it was. You're trying to do it fast, reduce the risk, keep costs down. And then all of a sudden you jump out to your business. I think what really saved us at that point in time was having that experience and background. I've got two business partners that, we always go back to, we're a bit of a tripod. Yeah. So we're a strong triangle because we're so different. And our business coach that we have, Mick Hawes, he says the same thing. Is like the reason why you guys work so well is just so different and there's different angles. And I think that really helps through COVID because we were able to report and capture what we were doing financially. And the risk at that stage there was that we weren't taking anything out of the business. So as long as we're making wages and we could keep feeding our families, all of us young families at that time too. Yeah. So
How old were your kids at the time?
geez, Layla was 2 years old in 2020. So 2.5 years old or something when we've come out of it. Frank was virtually just had his son at that time. Roger had a 3-year-old at sort of that joint. And, you've jumped out and you pulled, if I look back now and I think, would I have taken the plunge knowing what I know now? I don't know if I would have. Yeah. Because as you get older and you get more experienced and I suppose wiser, if you want to call it that, you find more reasons to not do something. And if I was to do what I did then now, it would be challenging. If I speak to a lot of people that are just so mentally blocked, like, yeah, I really want to do this. This is what I want to do with my life. So I am doing it. Oh yeah, because, I've got a job and, yeah, our kids. And it's like, well, if you really want to do something, you need to go out there and grab it. I think 2020, when we actually started to get things running within the business, I mean, you wind back, we're in my business partners. So it wasn't even a garage. We called it the dungeon. It was a room behind a garage and, there was half a dozen of us working out of there, just making things happen, trying to get things done and just held true to our core values at that point in time that we're just going to do the right thing. We're not here to rip people off. Be fair to our trades and subbies and be fair to our clients. And, hopefully that's sort of testament to where we're at today. To keep a good trade network behind us and we've had good clients all the way along and we've never had any major real issues with clients. But at the same time, it's like financially, it's been a real challenge as a business to get through to this point, 5 years. And I think eventually one day it all starts to come together. I think that, going back to what you said at the start, for other business owners, it's like, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that whether you're a builder or a business owner, you think that in 12 months, I can go buy a Maserati and, get one. Yeah, buy a Lambo. When Lambo, everybody watches crypto and thinks, oh yeah, I can do this. And the reality is, and I think it's like, Hormozy says all the time, it takes, and it's a slow clap, for years. And it's really true. It's, and it's really, really hard because, we're 5 years in now. And I actually said to one of our employees the other day, who's got a young son, I'm like, and we're talking about the change of the business and there's pain points and there's like struggles and we're not fully systemized and we don't have it all worked out and everything's not perfect. Yeah. Everybody's always looking for perfect.
Yes.
And I said to him that I go, think of it this way. Ed Grip's 5-year-old like your son. He's like, far out. I'm like, imagine talking to a 5-year-old. That's what you're talking to for our business. It's only 5 years old. It's still working its way in the world. And that's the way the business has been, but I think that the mindset through the steps, particularly in the past 2 years since we had started leaning on a business coach and then being more open to education around how your mind operates and, systems and procedures and information that way about how to run a business. I mean, like it's available, right? You can watch YouTube and people can pass on spreadsheets like that all, like that's easy.
Yes.
But the hard part's to actually get your mind to understand what you're trying to do. And then to know sometimes you have to buckle in, hold the fuck on, and just run, and if my business coach was listening to this, he'd probably say that's not the right thing to say, but it's a storm, you know. Like Jim Rohn says, it's seasons. So you have summer, it's beautiful, like right outside. Now we know winter's coming.
Yeah.
We know it's gonna be shit, cold,
Yeah.
have stormy days,
Yeah.
and it's the same as business. But being able to accept that's a whole another thing. I'm not saying I know how.
Accept it and also plan for it too, right?
Yeah, and plan for it. Yeah.
So, I find that only certain personalities are able to weather storms, right?
Yeah.
And because as you can see, people have the same opportunities, but why do some people go through those storms and some people not? So let's rewind that, right? I want to know more about little Anthony, right? What it was like with him growing up and all that type of thing, and what you studied then later on, all that type of thing.
Yeah, right.
Because something tells me that you weren't born with a Lambo. You weren't born with
A Lambo.
you weren't born with like, mates and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's easy for people to look at you and think, well, you've got all the success now, right?
Building it. Yeah.
Building it, right? But tell me what it was like for you. Was it like, just a normal school growing up, just humble beginnings?
Definitely, yeah. So there's no sob story from childhood for myself. Like grew up in great family around me, like parents, great conditions. Yeah, no maids, no Lambos. But that was never part of it, I suppose. I mean, early school life, grew up state primary school, again, young parents, had their own business. And I mean, how many kids, yeah, if you look back at, say, 5-year-old self or 7-year-old self or 10-year-old, you're not looking at that when at that time, at that moment, right?
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this the other night when we was all about mindset and how the issue for a 16-year-old girl being that, she get picked on and you're like, man, it's not a big deal. But for her, it's the biggest thing. It's like when you're 5 or 7 years old, the biggest thing there was, who I was playing football with at sort of lunchtime. But as you get older and then you look back differently at those times, being young was great. Hardworking parents.
So you saw that hardworking parent.
Hardworking parents, yeah. So I had, and we're talking about this just, my daughter asked me, she's like, what was it like to have your appendix out, and bang, flashback to a core memory. And I was sick at school. I was in pain. My mum come pick me up. We lived in Craigieburn and we had, dad, they had their own business in Preston. So I pick him up, take him back to the factory. And then, she found, you're all right. You're okay. You're fine, mate. Your stomach's all good. Found me, go up in the ball to the hospital and bloody nearly had a ruptured appendix. But it was because, if you think in that mind, had to go pick me up, take me back because I had to work because, it turned into a shitstorm. And it did. My parents lost their business.
Yes.
And that was like, I don't know, 10, 11. Mm-hmm. Fuck, that's emotional. But that set you with like that resilience, yeah? Like, I don't know. It wasn't like that then as you got older, you were like, I need to make millions of dollars there for that not to happen. But it becomes something that, I suppose it's the resilience, yeah? When you sit there, like what builds up, it's like, fuck, you see that, you see all the shit go, but then we still had everything. Still went to a Catholic high school. Parents gave me all that, had a tutor, sort of worked, but sort of didn't. Maybe my peers at the time. But went through high school and then finally get to year 11 and I'm like, my mum made me do the bloody freaking methods, physics, chemistry, biology. And I was just like, mate, this is not what I want to do. Turn around to my old man and, testing it to my old man. My mum went to work and then built a successful career in ANZ. My dad went back to night school at, 41. So almost the age that I'm at now with young kids to go back to school to become a plumber and then start all over again, But then I was like, mate, I'm going to be a plumber in high school. I'm like, fuck this. I'm like, why would I go to bloody tertiary? And then he's like, mate, if you want to be a plumber, then I'm going to treat you like an apprentice. And I was like, I've already been digging trenches for long enough. And I think that's a great idea. And then wanted to be a forensic scientist. I always wanted to be a forensic scientist, and then came to putting in my my stuff for uni and thought, I don't want to be a plumber, but what else is similar? And my dad said to me, he's like, man, what about like civil engineering? Like, become like, that's sounds great. And I put it all in, and first round I got into Vic Uni. So I thought, oh, this is really, really cool. But then by third round, which is very, very rare, got into RMIT, and that's where I wanted to go. So, life just starts to work out the way that it does. So RMIT civil engineering it was. And then that's probably, from 18 onwards is when the story really sort of comes together, in the sense that parents have done everything you've done. Yeah, they can, but you walk your way into the world and you party, and you just see the world a bit differently. And, went to uni, but I wasn't full gun-ho driven on where I was going. I always just thought that tomorrow would be something else. But was always talking about having, at the time, mate, that I've got a mate, no longer with us. But we used to talk about having a construction company. And you're like, yeah, one day we'll do it. And it must have been like a memory in the back of your head. Fast forward, finish uni, sort of fell into a job in cranes, completely different, really like, yeah, you don't really need to be a civil engineer for that, but exposed me to a world of, just a different world of being able to see all the different types of construction that we had to offer. And I think through that time there, I started to realize that I couldn't party forever, and that you've got to start making some headway, and we all have our own journey and path, right? So at that point there, the resilience through all the childhood and stuff like that just meant that I always worked, and I always just did my best and strive for, whether you call it perfection or not, but was always to put in the effort. And that's when we moved to Perth. But the big bee in my bonnet when I was in Perth was that I just wanted to get into construction. I was still in cranes at that stage there and doing big civil projects, but I just wanted to build houses.
What does building houses mean to you?
Um, it sort of got back to, hey, if we wind back, there was this memory when I was 16-year-old, and I was with my dad. He was a plumber, as I said, with their own business from air conditioning into plumbing. And he was doing this job in Bouverie Street, Carlton. And he was helping another mate out as a plumber. And it was a multi-unit sort of dwelling. Memories a bit vague on it, but ultimately the developer come down, he was 35, drove a Porsche. And I was like, that's me. That was me. There's still a dream, mate. Porsche GT3 RS one day.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's me, yeah. And I got, you fast forward back into Perth, and probably the reason why I didn't, it's probably that risk aversity. So from my parents, jumping around a little bit, but from my parents, from when they lost the business to start back up, they was very risk averse. So, go to uni, get a job, do well, risk averse. And then when I went to Perth and came back, I knew I wanted to be in construction. I managed to, through hustling through cranes, because I was still in cranes when I came back here. I met a guy who was a builder, and he was young at the time. And he's like, I just want people that will grind, van. He's like, I don't care about your background or experience that you haven't built before. He's like, I know what you can do because I see the effort and the hustle and the grind. So jumped on board with him, and then that just kicked off the construction career. That led to me working with Roger on site together, building apartments, and the partying days meant to meeting Frank, my business partner. As a chippy, and that became like everything just started to come together, right?
Yeah.
But then, I kept pushing forward. So there's always roadblocks, right? So I remember when I landed back from Perth, I said to Frank, I'm like, mate, I'm gonna become a builder. So got master builders to come to my house in Craven. I'm like, I'm a builder. They're like, cool. How many buildings you done? None.
That's not the point.
That's not for the point is I want to be a builder. And he's like, mate, come back to me when you've got some experience. And that's what I did, man. I suppose a really long-winded way of saying it, but everything was always about sacrifice to get to where it is now. Yeah. I went to uni. I finished. I didn't really have much direction. I started to find myself. I went into cranes. From cranes, I went over interstate, not for the money, but just something different. Yeah, let me go see the world differently. I learned life experience, changed up my mindset, came back. I didn't know it was mindset at that time. Yeah. Come back, said, no, I'm going to again, another, cha-cha, your little backward step, 2 steps forward, 1 step, whatever it is, side step, whatever you want to call it. Trying to figure it out, and you're working on, next thing you know, you're working on site, man, bloody running or concrete decks and order and stuff, and people are yelling at you, man, and everything's flying, but it was just hustle, grind, persistence, man. And that was my parents growing up. It's little Anthony. Your parents were just hustle, grind, work all the time. And I used to load the river gun for my old man when I was like 4 years old when he was driving around building quarries. But it was just ingrained, And then you fast forward to these days, and when you don't see it in people, you don't understand, but not everybody had the same upbringing. So,
And that's a really good point, because you went through those tough times. You went through COVID, right? Because you've had that resilience or persistence ingrained within you. But at the time as a child, you probably thought, man, this is a really shit feeling. But parallel to what you felt as a drawback, that then became a benefit.
yeah,
Because then it became like a superpower for you.
yeah, 100%. Most definitely. The way that, if you push, like you said, through COVID, oh man, like, bloody hell, it didn't mean that my head wasn't wrecked from it. It didn't mean that I thought I had it all worked out. There's a lot of stress. It's, it still is. Ask my wife, if she's sitting here now, she'd be bloody rolling her eyes. But, you come through that COVID, and it was, 2.5 years ago now that we started getting a coach or a business coach to really start to understand mindset. And it wasn't the part of business coaching around, documents and procedures and all that sort of stuff. It's like, we've learned that, man. We've built cool stuff, and it was a mindset. And, through COVID, it bloody tested you. Like, I could do it now. I could just, say, fuck this shit, man, and throw the towel in now. And over the past couple of years, man, like, I've had the combo with the boys where it's like, do we just ride this out? Everybody will get paid. We'll finish what we've got, and we'll go back and work for somebody. And the answer's always the same. It's like, fuck that, And my wife said it to me just last week, man. Like, I suppose for people that whoever does watch this, and it goes back to when you said business owners or builders or whatever it may be, what's the difference, It's just that resilience that we've said that makes you say no. My wife said to me last week, she's like, you're really stressed, how long are you keep doing this for? Like, it's just wave after wave of hits, and you're up and you're down and you're up and you're down. What's plan B? I'm like, there's no plan B. There is none. There is no plan B. I'm not in the boots. They're gone, mate. Like, this is where we're at, and you have to build your mind, stand guard to deflect the thoughts and the things that come through.
You mentioned mindset a couple of times. What was the turning point for you that you knew that it wasn't a procedural thing? It wasn't a, database full of numbers? Because as you said, you can find that on YouTube. You can download that from whatever it is for free. What was the turning point for you where you knew that it wasn't anything more than about your mindset first?
I'm trying to figure the actual pivotal moment in that.
Was it when you joined up to your business coach and he started talking more about mindset?
Oh yeah,
Or was it before that?
that was the trigger. Was that where it came together? No. And it was the same thing I said, just coming from a session with them on the weekends out in Perth. And, Mick will always sort of ask us at the end of it, what's your one takeaway? And I didn't have a takeaway as such in that situation, but what I said to him, I go, is that 2 years ago, we went on our first, other than the journey that we've gone on with him, our first, sort of in-person meet with all the builders have come from around Australia. And, that was like a real pivotal moment of, wow, we've learnt so much in these 2 days and understand it. But fast forward 2.5 years, the concept and the grasping of what that learning's actually accumulated to, like that 1% every day. Yeah, that one little step, like that one little rhythm that builds over time. And I'd say that it was probably only really in the middle of last year somewhere when things were starting to get real hairy in the business. Like, things were being hairy for 5 years, but constantly trying to build something where we got to this, sort of the bigger projects are coming in now. More people, more staff, more people, more problems, more challenges that come across your plate. And it was at that point that you start to see that when you're feeling overwhelmed, under the weather, stressed, depressed, whatever you want to call it, it's, you're standing guard at your own mind and how you can work through that. Doesn't mean that you get it right every time. Yeah. Like the thoughts are still going to come. Yeah. But somewhere in there, but it was the compounding of the work. Yeah. And, I'm on the tip of the iceberg. Like there's nowhere near where I think it can grow to. And I think once you understand that too, a lot of business owners will think that they know everything, that they've got it all worked out. That because
How does having a resilient mindset help improve that moment when you're telling yourself that you've got more staff, more wages, more problems within yourself? You could have flaked. Yeah, right? How is sometimes about fully flaked, yeah. How did having a positive mindset get to that next, like you could sort of tick within yourself and sort of understand what your mindset is telling you and what it wants to do. It's probably easier to give it all up. Probably easier to give up. What could you notice that you're telling yourself? And then how were you, because a lot of people listening right now in the same position, they've got the staff, they've got the problems, they've got the wages. They're thinking to themselves, man, I'm fucked. Right? How they want to learn, how did Anthony overcome this?
wow. And I wouldn't even say that I've overcome it, but I was saying that I'm learning every day.
Yeah. But how did you come across it? Like, how did you say to yourself, one more day? Like, what was the thing? Because you didn't give up there.
Yeah, just the goals are too big, man. Yeah, like the goals.
So what were you telling yourself to help you navigate yourself out of that, where you can share?
To be honest, I just psyched myself up. Fuck, honestly, it was listening to, listen to the positive affirmations, mate. Like listening to, I use apps like Pet Talk or, Spotify, whatever it is. You jump onto somebody and you listen to the way they talk and to think like a winner. Yeah. If you're going to think like a loser, you'll be a loser, man. And even though when you're down and out and things will come out of your mouth and you're saying things like, don't put yourself down, man. You've got to, you have to look at the positive. You got to find that there's got to be positives in it. There's like really no negative situations. They're opportunities to learn. Yeah. They're not problems. Yeah. There's skills to develop. It's like, what can we take from this? How do we grow? How do we become more than what we are today? What's the point of, and we talk, Mick and everybody, like we talk about it too, like what's your purpose? I really I don't know what my purpose is yet. Yeah. I know what I want to do. I know that I want to have significance as a business owner. Doesn't necessarily, it definitely means the construction industry, but I've got goals of multiple businesses and becoming an influential person in that sort of space. How do you do that? Through mindset. What would a winner think in this moment? Yeah. All right. Like beating yourself up. Yeah, man. Like massive cash flow problem. We dropped a lot of money on a project, say it straight out. There was a period of time for our business, 10 projects running, 7-figure business, man. You look at the bank account, there's $8,000 sitting there, yeah? And you look at your business partners, you're like, boys, wow. Yeah, what happens? You hustle it, you overcome, that's cash flow. It wasn't like we're broke, but it's cash flow. It's like, yes, we need to get money in, man. How do we hustle? If you sit there and you tell yourself, oh man, there's nothing I could do about it, this is shit, what am I supposed to do? Like, you're not going to get a result, man. In those moments there, and even for myself, I've said this, man, scream to the car, drive it to work, listen to positive and just like full yelling at the dashboard. I'm like, if somebody's driving next to me, they're going to be like, look at this guy. When you're sitting there, oh, come on, like firing yourself up inside. Yeah, like somebody be sitting there at the lights and go, who is this peanut sitting in the car next to him? Because I'm just trying to, G yourself up, like really pump out to go, today's another day. I'm going to fucking win. I'm not like, today's not going to be the day that breaks me.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And I love the vulnerability because people listening as well, probably thinking, man, Like, that's me either screaming and yelling like, at my dashboard, maybe sitting there and just crying their lungs out because they're so stressed and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This stuff happens.
It happens, man, and you can only best, you've got to build yourself with the skill set to learn around it. So it was all about that from a financial standpoint. But yeah, I was pretty, you know, from a pretty robust strategy through my career and what we've learned around, financial management and stuff like that based on the projects that we've been on. Like you sit there and you're like, oh, it's a cash flow problem. I know where we're at. But you talk to a lot of people that one day they're buying brand new cars, the next day they're broke. And they're like, what happened? And it's like, well, you don't really know what you're doing. Like, you're not really in business then, are you? Yeah, you're not making the right decisions. You're just putting blinkers on and saying, hey, I'm just going to keep sailing ahead and hopefully everything comes in. So the stress and adversity in those times of like, beating myself up too. Yeah. Like you're like, mate, like you're beating this. You know how to get through it. Didn't help. It still doesn't. I still do it. Like there's still days where you come and you're like, man, I'm beating myself up. But clarity comes when you stop and you reflect and you look at it and you go, well, how am I going to win? How am I going to succeed today? And it doesn't have to be big. Just like little wins. You know what I mean? And then knowing the business, and it's challenging, man. Like business in any business. Like how many people do we know post-COVID in building, obviously. I don't know, like hospitality. Yeah. Like look how many restaurants. We're even flying over to Perth after 10 years on the weekend. Half those restaurants are shut down, man. Like, how you survived that? Yeah. And not to say that those people didn't have no other choice than to shove the gates and pull the pin, but I'm sure they're out somewhere else doing something. Yeah. And I look at business owners a lot differently since I've become a business owner.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether it's, you go to a fish and chip shop.
Yeah, man.
And you've got the old immigrants of 60 years. And I'm like, wow, how have you survived the economic waves through the times? Yeah.
A lot of respect, right?
There's a lot of respect, man. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So you mentioned earlier that okay, so then you got into, so let's fast forward to like, starting to build. You got into building. What did you notice around other builders out there and what they were doing that really rubbed you on like the wrong way? Like what were they doing? They were taking shortcuts, they weren't delivering on time, they were, stealing essentially. Yeah. When you started and the stuff that you're like, man, that's just wrong. What did you experience other builders doing?
I think the biggest thing being through COVID, and everybody's got their own situation. It's not about throwing other builders under the bus, whatever it may be. But obviously, a lot of builders were going broke, so we found that it was really challenging in that time to get people to finish your jobs. Now, I came from one of my businesses as well, one of my old bosses that I've managed to keep in contact here and there. He lost everything at one stage, and I saw the risks associated to that and the fallout for subbies. I think during COVID, what you found was people, vulnerability-wise for the subcontractors were, they were, oh, this guy's going to pay me big money to do this job, so why would I come to your job? It's like, mate, are you sure? Like, and next thing you know, the builder's gone broke. Same thing with winning projects. And for us, that was a big challenge. It was like, I've got a guy, again, it's how the world works and through the network over the years, but doing a project now, the financier, you priced a job for the financier, 3 years ago. And it was quite an extensive build. It was, just above between 1.5 to 2 million sort of band. And we missed out on maybe 50K or something like that, or 100,000 on that, which is, it's a lot of money, but on the big scheme of things, to another builder. Fast forward to this current day, and he's like, mate, the biggest mistake I ever had was not building with you because my builder went broke. And you just knew at that time that builders were signing contracts, bringing money in, and just sending it. So that was really frustrating. I don't think you see it as much currently now, but there's still builders that are very much struggling, that are trying to trade out of where they're at.
And people are obviously getting quotes from builders.
Yeah.
And because people just assume that every builder's the same.
Yeah, correct.
Right? It's like any, mini, money, mo, which one's the cheapest quote?
Yeah.
Okay. So what can you see and what can you advise people on that? Like what should they look out for? Is it always the cheapest is best?
Not always. And we're the same with our subcontractors. But I was just saying this to my, directors today as well. Like, cheapest price comes in, man, you'll get cautious of it. I think that today's market, with clients, they're a bit more cautious because they know the cheapest could mean that the builder's going to go broke. But it's about trying to say your value and really get people to understand what it takes.
What are some like 3 really cool tips that if I was looking at getting into a, building a home or building a building, what are some really cool tips that you can share for people wanting to do that and to choosing the right builder?
Yeah, well, I think it's all about the process and the initial interaction. A lot of people, we charge for quotes. We prefer to charge for quotes. It becomes challenging with clients, and particularly when we deal with both, single homeowners and then developers as well. But, a developer's more seasoned. They know the pricing a lot, probably more than, your one-off client. So if you're a one-off client building a house and, people say to us, why would I pay you for a quote when I can get quotes off these 3 guys? And I'm like, well, I'm going to explain to you why. Because we spend, X amount of man hours depending on the project to dive into it. We go back out to our trusted subcontractor network to get prices off them to make sure that we're accurate. To know that we're here to make money. Like, if we make money, we keep moving forward. You don't want us to not make money and go broke. So understanding what your pricing actually is definitely the biggest one, because a lot of people will just look at the number. Yeah. You're not buying a car. You go buy a Kia, from Kia. You know what you're getting, all right? That's different. You see the product. You know what it is. You haven't built your house yet. You don't know what you're going to get. So quality is really important. Checking quality, going through previous builds, reaching out to past clients, speaking to them. Defects happen. Issues pop up. Yeah. We're not perfect. The world isn't perfect. Our trades make mistakes. We make mistakes. But we get in and rectify it. So you want to make sure that you've got people that are going to deliver on the quality side of it. And time. People don't factor in the time. So what will happen is they'll go, hey, I'm going to get, let's use that example I just said before with that home builder. 2.5 years later, he's still trying to finish his house off. For us, we stick to our time frames. They have deviated, man. There's people that could sit there and say, oh, you ran a little bit over during COVID, but it was bloody hard. Like, we couldn't get trades back, but we still minimize that. We didn't drag them out for 2 years. You know what I mean? It's just like crazy. You're carrying finance on your project. Yeah. That you haven't factored into the initial price when you go back to old mate that was 20 grand cheaper. You're not saving the 20 grand at the start. So definitely knowing your numbers and your quote, checking the quality, and then making sure that they're going to be here to time. And that's from discussing CP.
And it's something, it seems simple, right? But then it's like, do those builders actually practice those things?
That's right.
And I think that's what makes you different. So what does make you different from all the other builders out there?
What's different with us? Obviously, number one, I've got the ability to spread the different ideologies, the way that our different business partners operate. Like I said before, like a tripod, we all think very differently, which enables us to be able to come together and make decisions and look at it from different angles. We come from a background of, in the end of the day, my business partner Roger as well, civil engineers. Like, we've come from a civil engineering background. We understand. It's sort of funny. Like, you can be a builder and everybody sort of assumes that the best builder is going to be a chippy. Yes, because you build the frame, right? But what about your foundation, man? Like, what about when your house is built on? It starts off with concrete, right? Yeah. So, not knocking the chippies, but we know, like, we're engineers. We've come from that. We understand connection detail. We know what things need. Like, we'll dive into how the things get installed. Like, it's just what we've come from.
Yeah.
So
it's that detail that is so important at the building stage.
Yeah.
It doesn't then come bite you in the...
Yeah. And understanding, the projects and communication and being able to digest the drawings and know where issues lie within drawings, know when things won't work and be able to identify it. No, let's just say you have to be an engineer. I know great builders out there, from chippy backgrounds or whatever it may be, that we align with. Unfortunately, you get caught up with the ones that are following those sorts of procedures and going for the cash grab that pull the name down in the industry, which is what people still see. But we're custom, whether it's our business is, custom. So that they be multi-units or single homes or renovations, everything's, nookie and different. And that's, we like that. We strive for that. We come from that sort of background, we like it.
Yeah. And there's this whole like cliche thing about laborers, right? And chippies, that they're never on time. They never turn up. They give you like a 20-hour window, right? And then they don't even turn up. You've taken a day off work.
It's hard.
And it's hard. Yeah. How are you guys different there? Like, are you guys reliable?
It's still challenging. Show up. Yeah, so like it's still challenging across all your trades, man. We try to keep a it's, whether it's this business or any other business, same thing, right? You try to keep your core group of trusted trades. We've built a good network now. We still have to adapt and change and be fluid with the industry, but we know that we have core guys that we bounce between our projects, and we have multiple of each trade so that we're not limited across our projects. And then it comes down to the matter, and it's challenging, right? Like,
Your core values
yeah,
have been around getting there on time, finishing on time, being reliable.
yeah, well, it's exactly right. Like our core values, line around having honesty, and transparency and with our clients. And we don't want to, deliver something that's shit. Like we don't want to do that, man. Like it's not, we're not hitting you for a short time. If it was just a cash grab, man, we would have been out in 2020. Because there's no cash in it. It's like, it takes years to build that reputation. And when it comes back down to what I say before on the mindset of it, if you're building a business, it takes time, it takes years. Your reputation's important. You got to crawl before you walk. But I feel like Eve Group, after 5 years as the business that we are, is starting to walk. And that's through the projects that we're winning. And it's crazy because you go build it for other people and you go work on them, but then when you're doing it for yourself, everything's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Even for us, finance, every time we go do a project and a bank needs to assess whether or not we have the capabilities of cash flowing it and how we do that and where's our forecast. Cool. Do we owe any money to the ATO and saying, oh man, we paid up to date, and like it's just like the series of events that get you towards being trustworthy.
Yeah.
That's another part. But I'd take that to I think we were having a chat before about the other business and in Pure Roots and what we're doing in herbal products. And then particularly Michael, a business partner, saying, it's not about just like selling as much of the product as you can. It's about finding the people that engage with the product of what we're trying to sell. It's like, it's a niche product, it's great product. We want people that actually genuinely want to use it. Well, that just filters through from our other business, right? So it filters through from Eve Group. And the core values have been the same thing. People that want to build with us. If it's just for pricing and I don't, I'm happy to say no to clients that don't have the same values. Yeah, I know we understand people are taking a big risk with us in construction to build their houses, and we appreciate them trusting us with what we're doing. But it's still our core values, right? Whether it's this business or multiple or wherever it takes to. I've got big plans for.
What are those core values? Like once people sign on with you, what do you know that they're safe with?
Yeah, look, we just like it's honesty, it's trustworthy. We treat like our projects, from a building point like they're out. I don't want people to walk into a property and be like, that's shit. It is. I don't want that. It actually makes me upset. And
Yeah.
but it can happen. Like we go through jobs sometimes, like, oh, that's a really shitty detail, boys. Like we could do that better. Okay, let's fix it. Let's modify it. Let's change it up. But it's always sort of come down to that, honesty and integrity thing from us. And if you wind back down to little Anthony, right? It's like I saw my parents, what happened to my parents because people weren't honest to them. They're people without integrity, people ripped them off, and to this day, my old man can still rattle their names off and be like, mate, these guys were the reason, why we went broke and stuff like that. And I don't want to be that person. Back to my subbies or to my clients, yeah? Nor do I want a client that's going to take us for a ride. So we're careful with who we work with. So honesty is big both ways. It's not just us. Like, you're not sitting there trying to, I don't reckon it's like about us in any business. I don't think you're like, it's always about, you to sell yourself. It's like, you don't need to sell yourself. You should find people that align with your values and you work with them.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Whether it's Pure Roots herbal products that we're trying to bring in, work with people that align with the values, man.
So you mentioned the herbal products and then you mentioned your current business. What's the common denominator of those things?
Wow. What is the common denominator between them? Geez, I don't really, I wouldn't say again, it's sort of,
Well, so you love what I can see, right? And you were asking before, you're not really sure what your purpose is.
Yeah.
I can see her as clear as day now.
oh, wow, here you go.
Right?
Yeah.
So you love helping people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Do you want to say I'm not clear on bloody purpose? It was we're starting to refine this around with our business coach, right? And growing people, right? It's part of my purpose, and I'm not clear on that. And when I say growing people, that filters to every facet of my life, whether it's my kids, my wife, my friends, people around me, my business. Yeah. And it's funny that you then come back here with that, bro. It's helping. It's that's part of it, mate. We want to have, and that's
And you're just using the vehicles, like how building these homes.
Yeah.
And having this other business as well.
Yeah.
But the core value or your core purpose
Is around that.
is around that.
Far out, man. And it's 6 human needs, right? Like contribution.
Yeah.
Significance. Like,
Yeah.
I want to. That's my core value. It's like I want to be. I do like I want to be known as a person of integrity, of trust. You know what I mean? I don't want to be one of those guys that makes on a current affair and they're running around and looking at people that ripped off. It's not all about money. If it was about money, would have ejected in 2020. You know what I mean? They're going and worked back on as a civil engineer somewhere.
So I assume that when you hand over a home, there's a lot behind that. There's a lot of meaning.
And there is, sometimes like I feel like we miss the mark on that, to be brutally honest with our business, mate. Like, and it's funny, I was just talking about this morning. We're talking about professional organized handovers and how really sullied, that really that handover the person. And at the start, we sort of had this pact with me and the boys that we'd have a scotch after every project we'd hand over. And we'd follow like $100 bottle, at that time. Wow, $100, And did we have it recently? And then sometimes even the handovers, like, and I trust my team to go do that. But then I feel a little bit of disconnect. Like it's not me sitting there shaking the hands. And then I've got a great team behind us in the office and they're putting these little packs together that, we're trying to make them personalized and stuff. But
because along the journey, what is in your head, you're probably thinking to yourself, I want to help people.
I want to help. Yeah.
Oh, so this project doesn't just become about dollars.
No.
It's about building people their first home.
Yeah.
Building, their memories, and you want to get it right.
You want it,
Which is what you're thinking.
Even for developers, right? Like you think, and people say, developers, and they're all in it for the money. Of course. Yeah. Like, but it's not just money.
No.
People are trying to build really cool stuff. I came off a site a couple of weeks back, not one of our sites.
Yeah.
But a friend of ours, and he's a developer, doing 140 factories. And he walks me through that site, right? And I probably didn't tell him. I didn't tell him because you don't think about it all the time. Yeah, I'd love for him if he saw this, but like he was so passionate, man. Yeah, yeah. And he walked through and he's like, look what we did with these factories and some like little details of like, it's really, really cool. And he's like, oh, what we've tried to do here. And he's walking me through it like an artist, right?
Yes.
Like he's built this. And I'm not saying every project's like that, but people are trying to do something, like you said, for their purpose, man. Yeah. Why is this development company, we're finishing right now 6 townhouses in Doncaster for a developer. What are they building it for, man? I don't know what his backstory really is, man. Is he doing it for his family? Yeah. Does he really want people to have nice homes? And then, like I said, you'll see stuff online. People absolutely bash like developers, but then somebody's going to buy that house, one of those townhouses, and that's their first house. I can go back to 2020, handing over our first project, and I remember Unit 4, Ambon Street, Preston, and the girl at that time, the young lady, I should say, that bought Unit 4, and it was their first investment property. Do you know what I mean? And we went back a few times to fix up a couple of issues that we had with some water leaks, which happens. Like, open and honest, yeah. Like, if that happened, we'll go back and fix it. And then she ended up moving out, and she moved on to another property. But it was her first investment property, man. Like, she had probably worked, from young age, and here she was in her 20s, bought a property as an investment. And I remember one day, I think when we were handing over the keys, she had her friend with her, and then she's probably sitting there got a friend going, look what I bought. You know what I mean? Like, how cool is that moment?
Yeah. And I can see the sparkle in your eye because you contributed to that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I can see from you is that it's not just about building a hone.
Yeah.
And just, turning over like revenue. It's not about the.
No, exactly right, man. Like, money's part of it. Like, I want cool things in life. I said before, man, portion. One day, if I keep following the plan, like it'll come when it needs to come.
But as you're building, you're thinking,
Or if I was only thinking about the money, then I'd be ripping off.
Yes. Well, what are you thinking when you're building? Like, what are the things that you really want?
That we're delivering something. Yeah, like there's significant. Like look at our contribution to society. Like not everybody sees it that way. We knock down a house, people freak out, and we put a couple of jaw lock there. But that person is successful enough to be able to do it themselves, and they've built themselves in their home. Like
Yeah.
that's their land. They can choose what they want to do with it. Somebody wants to get angry that we've knocked down, an old weatherboard house so that we can build, a duplex or something. Then buy it and renovate it. We'll renovate it for you. Yeah. Well, let us create your dream. Like let us do something different. But no, it's true. And I think it's the one thing with the guys is when I say the guy, my business partners, we talk about it, it's always been about the honesty and integrity. And it will come together. It's like, Rogers, if we do the right thing, it'll come back to it. It's like good karma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do the wrong thing and it'll come back around. But same time to build something significant and to be able to contribute on the scale that we want to contribute, we need to build a successful business. Yeah. And we have to be financially stable. There has to be money in it. And at the end of the day, for the risk that we've taken and then, the coals that we've dragged ourselves over and, beaning, yeah, pits your stomach. When you sit there and you go home to your wife, you're like, we might lose the house. Yeah, this is a potential. Then she would I laugh because if she was watching this, she'd be like, you're an absolute idiot. Because she's like, 1 minute you're saying, I'm going to set the world on fire and take it by the balls and I'm going to send it. And the next minute you're like, we're going broke. And it's like, that's the peaks and troughs of business. But sometimes, you sit there and you have those convos like, that's little Anthony again. Yeah. Saw what happened to my parents. I don't want it to happen. There's a fear. We've talked to this. That fear comes out, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We told me a mindset there. The mindset, that's not going to happen because we're not going to let it happen. By doing the right things with us, we're going to have, and be aware too, that there's still snakes in the grass, and you've got to be aware of that in business. Allowing us to deliver stuff of, significance and contribute. Like, even at the end of last year, I sat emotionally on a site in North Melbourne where we're doing 11 townhouses, basically apartments. It's a really cool little job. But it was the first time we're pouring concrete and suspended slab since Roger and myself had done it 10 years ago, together, or maybe a little bit longer, whatever it was, around the corner on another job, and it was emotional. It was like, man, this is significance for me, for my family. Why? Because it's like part of your legacy. It's like, what's the growth, the contribution? But then ultimately, when I drive past it, they'll be like, I wonder who's living there now. Who's this is? Who's enjoying that rooftop bar? God, it'd be great to go have a drink.
You mentioned that you love personal development.
Yeah.
Right? I'm asking personal development junkie, right?
Yeah.
And you just love it. You love learning, because as you learn, things change outside of you.
Yep.
You also recently did a hypnotherapy session.
Yes.
What was the decision before that? How was the experience? And what was the app like? Explain.
All right, explain. It's really good because it goes back to what we're talking about before. What was that pivotal moment, right? And I said before about midway through last year, somewhere where I started to see whether the neural pathways start snapping, so you can see the importance of growth mentally. And then at the end of last year, Ian Seagal, presented a beta course around mindset and understanding your limiting beliefs. And it was a 9-week course. He offered it for free to our business coach group. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to jump in this opportunity. I probably wouldn't have 2 years ago. I would have been like, oh, I can't do that. That's weird. Yeah. And it was a very interesting journey around understanding limiting beliefs. Fast forward to the hypnotherapy session, and I was already sort of preconditioned to understand now what the advantage of that would be. Yeah. Not being able to do it. But yeah, man, completely trippy. I keep saying to you, it was very, very trippy experience because, you think that it's going to be like the cartoons. Yeah. Where like your eyes goes, and you pass out. Yeah. And you just come back to, but probably the biggest thing was when, you said to me afterwards, when you're like, how long do you think you've been doing it for? I'm like, 20 minutes. You're like, it's been an hour and a half. And you're like, well, where did the time go? And it was like a very deep meditation. But I think it presented a lot of awareness to the inner beliefs that you've taken from childhood and the way you explained it in that and the way that I'd learned it from Ian, and then so much more aware now, and I spoke again with Ian after the session, and then, again, talking about how it's your thoughts and your mental processes behind it. So highly recommend that process. Yeah. Like it's amazing for anybody.
Because a lot of people even know what the subconscious is, and they have all these, as we were saying before, these automatic thoughts, right? That just happen, and they don't really know. You can read a book and be aware of it, but then what do you do about it? And a lot of people know about the subconscious mind. How did you feel afterwards?
Zonked. I slept like a baby. I absolutely slept like a log. After it, I felt clearer. And we've been saying that all week. Yeah. Like, it was definitely clearer. I think that, it's a, so people's thoughts automatic that, oh, that can't happen. What's your subconscious? Like, that doesn't work. What do you mean? Nah, there's no way. It's all bullshit. Yeah. Like this doesn't happen. Yeah. I mean, once you start to understand how, or you learn, again, like, but those, all this knowledge around this mindset stuff, and yeah, far out, man. Like, it all starts to make sense. Then I think when you're more open to it, you'll get development out or you growth out of that. Definitely something I'd do again, 100%, because just this week's been a bit different. Been a bit calmer. Yeah.
You're able to make better decisions.
Yeah, well, we talked about, with myself and that real core limiting belief around fear. Yeah. And we wound back. We've talked about it today. You go back, parents lost everything. I'm scared to lose everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched, when we're diving back in, there was a situation that involved that. Yeah. And you're like, far out. And God, my parents will think that I'm buddy. I'm not, but it's, then there's fear, and then it's constant. You go back 2020, you talk about the business. Why didn't I do this sooner? And I say, oh, I wanted to do this sooner. Why didn't I, I spent 3 years in cranes and it wasn't, I enjoyed it. And there's parts I loved about it, but it wasn't where my passion lied. But when we're talking about purpose now, it was obviously within me at that point to really grow and contribute, and create. And I just didn't feel like I was doing that. But I see that now. I didn't see that then.
Yes.
So from that, and you fast forward back into it to the session, and then you're like, wow. And then since then, some moments where the fear presents, it's not as physiological. Mentally, you're aware of it, and you can catch that thought, and catch it before you go into too much of a, sort of into a mental state where you're too flustered. And the chat with Ian Seagull about that last night as well was, once you're in that primal state of, fight or flight, your fear, and you're elevated, you can't stop it.
No.
You can't stop it. But if you can grab it before you get there, and that's where all my work is around my mindset,
I love it, man.
for the past 12 months. And if we're sitting here with my business coach, Mick, I'm sure he's heard me a lot, being frustrated and change, frustration with curiosity, but it's very challenging. And I think all these steps, from what I did last year and all these 1%ers, and all of a sudden you do a session, you're like, wow, it's like you make a big leap in it as well. Like when you work on 1% every day and do the hypnosis, it's like, man, you just big leap in it, man. It's trippy. It is very trippy. Highly recommend it. But you can't explain it, right? You can't explain it. You can't explain it. But cool. It all comes back down to your mindset, man.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want people to know about or learn about that will help elevate them? Like people either wanting to purchase a home, what they should look out for, or
I think for anybody, whether it's a homeowner, whether it's a subcontractor, whether it's another builder, or just somebody who's even listening, you just ask a question. Like I came off the back a couple of weeks ago. Again, some guys within our business coach group, and you always teach what you most need to learn, right? And me, it's that I go into a very frustrated, frantic, very quick reaction, go instant, and trying to slow that down. But then when you explain it to somebody, you can explain it a whole lot clearer. And I had the same thing with one of my mates, and he was talking. He's a builder on the Bellarine Peninsula and had some issues with the client. He was all frustrated and flustered. And I'm like, man, in the big scheme of things, is it a big deal? Is this really a big issue? I'm like, how about this, man? And then, you come off the call with me and he's like, mate, you talked me down great. He sent me a text message after it. So thanks heaps for helping me with it like today. He's like, I really appreciate it, man, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't need to thank him, man, because it's helped me. Because that's part of my, contribution there. So music is part of my purpose of growing people and helping people out. So the thing for anybody, man, is just ask the question. Reach out. Like, don't be scared to message somebody. Yeah, like DM it. We don't get it enough, construction business where people will genuinely just sort of ask the question. People probe for free information. That's sort of a different thing. But, we're offering these processes now where we take them through the whole lot in the construction business. Cool. So the whole process to explain more about it.
And that way that creates a lot of transparency, takes out a lot of fear from the people that are talking.
Yeah. But like, who's got it right in life, right? Who, like, everybody sort of thinks, like, even like Instagram, like everybody thinks that everything's as it is. That's like, that's a whole fake world, man. It doesn't exist. Yeah. Everybody's working their way out. And ask the questions. Nothing stupid. Like, some people like myself genuinely want to help. And like, if my story can help somebody, or like my mate, like last week, I'm like, great. Okay, because I probably would have been the same way he was thinking of the situation, but outside in, helped him out. I felt good about it. I just appreciate people to reach out and listen, man.
Mate, you're just a honest guy, all right? And I can just feel that. Man, I would love to build a home with you. I just know what you're going to get.
Maybe one day we can do it.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I know that this is what's going to be. Yeah, there's no bullshit. There's no, like, I know I'm going to get a really good quality home. Even if I'm spending a little bit more, who cares?
That's right.
I'm getting peace of mind. I can sleep at night and know that I'm going to move in when we agree that we're going to move in.
100%.
It's that simple.
And things might pop up, man. And things you have on will be open, transparent. We'll always do it together because we don't want to all be stressed out. We got to enjoy life, man.
That's it. Awesome.